I want to talk about something that might be surprising, but I've had a lot of people talk to me about this. Got Michelle White too. She just came on. Had a lot of people talk to me about this, and it's a more beneficial conversation than you might think because it branches out. I'm going to talk about having a biblically balanced view of our health, our bodily health, and which is tied to our mental health. So let's look here in 1 Timothy chapter 4. David Treadway just popped on. 1 Timothy 4:1. Now the Spirit speaks expressly that in the latter times some shall depart from the faith, giving heed to seducing spirits and doctrines of devils, speaking lies in hypocrisy, having their conscience seared with a hot iron. He starts to mention some of the heresies here. Forbidding to marry and commanding to abstain from meats, which God has created to be received with thanksgiving of them which believe and know the truth. Because every creature of God is good, and nothing is to be refused if it is received with thanksgiving. So obviously it's talking about food. Verse 5, for it is sanctified by the word of God and prayer. If you put the brethren in remembrance of these things, you shall be a good minister of Jesus Christ, nourished up in the words of faith and good doctrine, wherein you have attained. But refuse profane and old wives' tales, and exercise yourself rather unto godliness. Because, here we go, bodily exercise profits little, but godliness is profitable unto all things, having promise of the life that now is, and of that which is to come. Now, we had a few more here jump on since we started reading. So we're looking at this idea today, and like I said, I think once we get started and start talking about it, and I've talked to some people recently about it, they've brought it up to me, and it's gotten me thinking about talking about our health, our physical health overall, having a biblically balanced view of how we should think about our health physically, and I believe tied to it, and really more important, is mentally. And the things they're tied together. But we saw some things as we read this introductory text, talking about foods, right? False religion trying to steer people away from certain foods in a legalistic way. So we know, some of those things, we've seen they've been corrected. And we know some people that really make a big deal about some of these things. We know that as you grow in the grace and knowledge of the Lord Jesus Christ, you encounter people that are weak in the faith, and their conscience might be tender about certain foods, right? Then in Corinthians, it talks about, whether or not you're allowed buying meat at the market that's been offered up to idols. It's good meat, it's cheap. Some people had a weirdness, a tender conscience about that. And we know the rules of how we deal with people, but when it comes to this food, it's pretty clear that God says through the apostle here that it's fine to eat whatever you want. And we know eventually we see things about moderation and, different things like that. But more than likely, this was probably talking about some of the Judaizers not want you to eat pork or shellfish and different things like that. But it makes this statement here in verse 8. It says, it's comparing godliness in verse 7. Then it says bodily exercise profits little. Now, it didn't say didn't profit any. And you've probably heard preachers say that because it's true. It didn't say that. And probably back then, here's the other thing too, if you think about back then compared to today, they probably moved around a lot more back then. People probably walked to go places. They had gardens. There was a lot more activity. They didn't have their face in a screen sitting on the couch, right? They weren't watching TV. So we know there's a vast difference. And people now that want to be lazy and not want to take care of themselves on the one extreme, sort of a fatalistic attitude, they'll look at this and say, see, don't have to worry about doing anything, taking care of a body. And then they see the other language there about receiving food with Thanksgiving. They think, oh, that means, cookies, cakes, ice cream, pie, pasta, just all the bad stuff. Hey, no holds barred, right? So people can start thinking crooked on all this stuff, and then they end up, landing in the doctor's office needing some diabetes medicine or something. But anyway, godliness is profitable unto all things, having the promise of life, and now is, and that which is to come. So really, before there's any interpretation of any of these type things, we just need to learn how to think. We need to learn how to think and ask God for wisdom and not overreact in either direction. Now, God's people are biblically responsible to think properly, right? We're told to ask God for wisdom. And wisdom is really the application of, decent knowledge. And as that's applied and, with experience and so on, and validation and things like that, you start to see that things work. What God says to do, as the knowledge is gained up and it's applied, it is shown to work. And this comes from the wisdom of God. He said to ask for wisdom, and he'll give it liberally. He'll give a lot of it freely. So we are responsible to think properly. And we should be good stewards of our time, our money, our plans, in reference to attending church, or if you don't attend church, to associate with the gospel however you can, online, through friends, Bible studies, and so on. We need to be good stewards in our work, in society, in education, getting educated, and all this includes our health and, our connections with our neighbors and family and just everybody you come in contact with. But really, our health is part of it, and we shouldn't treat that like as a secondary issue. And people might start getting more serious about it as they get older, and they're not as rugged, and they don't spring back as fast like we did when we were younger. So there's two extremes of thinking. There's the fatalistic idea, like it just says here, bodily exercise profits little, so who cares? Screw it, doesn't matter. And there's that fatalistic idea. And then there's the other extreme of, you turn it into idolatry. And not only that, maybe you turn it into idolatry with yourself, and it's like vanity, and you're maybe talking too much about your accomplishments or showing yourself off in a vain way, or being maybe rigid and trying to tell people what to do. It's one thing to, when somebody asks about something, you give them the information, but it's quite another thing to shove something down somebody's throat and, try to make them do something. We know that doesn't work out too well in anything. But anyway, both extremes are unwise, and you could consider each one actually being sin, because it's not thinking right. It's not done in faith. Neither one of those extremes are done in faith. If you want to jot this reference down, everybody's familiar with it. I'll just read it. It's a quick one-liner. It's Hebrews 9:27. And as it is appointed unto men once to die, but after that the judgment. All right, so this is one that seems to push people most of the time in a fatalistic direction, right? It's like, psh, predestination, there it is. What's it matter? You're gonna die sometime. And they kind of get the whole idea of means and they set it aside like it doesn't matter. Like, well, we're going to die sometime. And a lot of time negatively, they just go in the direction of just like doing bad stuff because you're going to die. Well, even that wrong attitude is part of the means for, I'm not going to say early death, but what contributed to lack of longevity in the sense of the context of the conversation, right? I remember talking with some guys I used to work with years ago, and some of them had an ultra like fatalistic attitude, and I, at the time, my kids were really starting to get into shooting guns, and even the girls. And we had a little .22 rifle, and it wasn't very loud, and they would put up dolls and Barbie dolls and stuff, and they were using scopes, and they were pretty good. They were hitting a Barbie in the head at a pretty good distance. And I told the guys, I said, well, you're going to die sometime. Why don't you come over to the house? My kids need some moving targets. You just run out in the yard, my kids could shoot at you. You're going to die sometime. And, they got the message, like, that's pretty stupid. And well, it's stupid, your attitude of, like, doing stupid stuff that's going to make you die sooner with your body, right? So sometimes we have to be silly to prove some points there, how that people are being foolish with their thoughts. But this text here, Hebrews 9:27, is a truth. And, that day that God has for each person is, different for everybody. So here's the deal. Having known that, here's where we can have peace, joy, assurance. We can have rest in Christ on the foundation of the gospel promises that whenever that day is, whether we're healthy or we're in bad health, the day we die, we're in Christ. So that is what matters. And that's sort of the warning in Hebrews. It's talking about, don't go back in this old covenant. You have the blood of Christ. That's your only hope. And if you got that, when you die, you're fine. So this attitude of approaching the throne of grace with boldness in the day of trouble, this is the idea of promoting assurance. So again, no matter what our health is, good or bad, if a person's a believer and they know the gospel, then that's why it says this idea about bodily exercise profits a little bit, but the important part is the mindset when it comes to gospel things, right? So the balanced view is that God uses means on both sides of like good health and bad health, and people are affected in different ways and different levels on both sides. I think some of you might have seen that that one kind of a sissy boy, Richard Simmons, kind of effeminate, but he would always wear those silky shorts, but he had the kinky hair. He was doing all this aerobics and sweating with the oldies. Remember that guy? Well, he died at the same age that Ozzy Osbourne died at. And the Ozzy Osbourne, of course, abused his body with drugs and alcohol and things like that. And so when you see that, it should make you pump the brakes in, like, don't be over somebody's breathing over their shoulder trying to dictate what they do, because they're gonna turn around and say, hey, Richard Simmons was that kind of guy. He was always bugging people about this, and then look at him. And there's people that died earlier than Richard Simmons. There's marathon runners that had heart attacks and died at like in their 40s. So God is in control of all this stuff on both sides. He uses means on both sides, and it looks different. Everything looks different. Nothing looks the same. But wisdom should tell us, we know what's right. We should do what we need to do when we can do it, in wisdom, in moderation, and just take it from there. We shouldn't be living a life, walking on eggshells, like feeling like lordshippers want to make you feel. That shouldn't have come into this talk about health. So we know about this, in other words, predestination here. It's once appointed on a man, it's appointed on a man who wants to die. This predestination thing, nobody can predict it, per person. Just can't. So why take care of your health? What are some of the reasons? Well, first, we kind of alluded to a reason to kind of stay away from, like it's not for vanity or to show yourself off. And, some people, maybe early on, they might go that route, try to show their body off or to show off their maybe feats of strength or whatever. But, when people get older, it's just like, hey, I just want to function. I want to walk. I want to be able to sit down and read a book without falling asleep in 10 minutes, So, as you get older and more possibly rickety, your goals kind of change. You're doing it for different reasons. So the idea for, I'm just going to use me as an example. I want to be able to function effectively and not be weak, slow, lazy, or tired, or sick. And also I believe that when you feel healthy and you are healthy, it can and does, it connects to your mind, right? When you feel good physically, it usually affects your mind in a positive way. And, for me, the mind is more important than the body. But why not have these things go together? Paul just said something funny. He said, I stay chubby so I can stay humble. Hey, you're preaching to the choir. I don't know that I'm doing it on purpose, but so yeah, a healthy body can and does affect the mind, and I would hope everybody here would agree that your mind is way more important than your body, but they are connected. Somebody I was talking to recently, a friend of mine that had cancer. And he's going through different treatments, and he said, well, I'm bound to this room, and when I'm on a certain treatment, I do have a little bit more energy, and I might be able to play my guitar or draw, but he says when you're feeling this way with the cancer and the treatments, he said you don't feel like doing anything. And I kind of know a little bit about how that feels. You think, okay, you're sick off work and maybe you can do something light, and then it's like, I don't feel like doing anything, just like take some medication and just like force some sleep or something. You're lethargic. And, sometimes it takes that to heal. But point is, if you wouldn't have got the sickness in the first place, this little slow period in your life wouldn't have happened. And now things are starting to build up, and you might start thinking psychologically, man, I need to do this when I get out of this crisis period, right? So those things can affect not just your body, but your mind. So if a person doesn't take care of themselves, what do you think what should they expect, like in health or sickness? Well, bad health leads to needs, right? Obviously, it leads to needs. And in a variety of ways. And if it's a long period of time, it can affect, if you're off work, it could affect your paycheck. And if you don't have your stuff budgeted right, you might start getting in the red. I mean, who knows what could happen as far as loss of money for not working when it comes to your bills and stuff like that. But anyway, sickness is maybe getting you in that position in the first place. So there could be the connection there. There could be some care needed, like hands-on, right? You might be so sick and you need somebody to help you. And if you don't have somebody close by or somebody that couldn't help you, you know, there might be a cost to that. I remember when I had my knee issue and I was home a lot by myself. I mean, there were times where I really had a hard time, like getting up off the floor, getting up off the toilet. And I'm thinking, no way. And I wasn't even 60. I was like 58. And I'm thinking, how would this be if I was 80 or 85 or 90? You know, I would definitely have to have some help. So these are things that are, you don't think of them right when they happen, you know. So once you experience them, you need to like plan for like, hey, I need to fix this so I don't need as much help, maybe as early. Now there's some people, there's at least 2 people in this group that are in wheelchairs and they get around. Some people help them. Some of us have experienced that temporarily, whether it be a cane, wheelchair, crutches, walker, and or in the hospital, maybe a couple of days or a couple of weeks. I mean, we understand how that works. And so we should be thinking proactive and preventative, right? So there could be, you know, loss of funds, care needed, which might be costful, and really all the negative that could happen. What needs to be done is learning lessons, if we can learn them the first time. I've gone through different experiences physically, and I try to keep track in my mind, like how certain things work, what do certain medications do, what I did this time that I'm not going to do next time, and just, you know, you try to learn from your experiences. I'm gonna, if you want to turn to 1 Corinthians 6, let's look at a few things there. 1 Corinthians 6 and verse 12. All things are lawful unto me, but all things are not expedient. All things are lawful for me, but I will not be brought under the power of any. Meats for the belly, and belly for meats, but God shall destroy both it and them. Now the body is not for fornication, but for the Lord, and the Lord for the body. And God has both raised up the Lord, and will also raise us up by his own power. Know you not that your bodies are the members of Christ? Shall then he take the members of Christ and make them the members of an harlot? God forbid. What? Know you not that he which is joined to an harlot is one body? For 2, said he, shall be one flesh. But he that is joined unto the Lord is one spirit. Flee fornication. Every sin that a man does is without the body, but he that commits fornication sins against his own body. What? Know you not that your body is the temple of the Holy Ghost, which is in you, which you have of God, and you are not your own? For you are bought with a price. Therefore glorify God in your body and in your spirit, which are God's. So here, there's some application here to some sexual activity that's used, your body's being used for. And the truth of verse 19, for example, and 20, which is more generic, should apply to anything connected to your body, even the good and bad that you would or would not do to your body, for your body, and so on. There would be a wide application. some people might try to take verse 19 and say this is not talking about your physical body, it's talking about the church or something like that. There's no way getting around what it's saying here. It's talking about your physical body. There's a broader application in some other texts where it's talking about church body and so on, and God's people are the church and we're the temple and so on. But that's kind of trying to weasel out of some things to get away with abuse and things like that some people like to fatalistically interpret in a antinomian way, and to weasel out of certain obvious things that God's showing. Now, I just want to, we've got like 2 minutes till Zoom, but I just want to start talking about this as we open up conversation. There is not a dietary plan necessarily in the scripture. We know that things were way different today than they are back then. We know there's a lot of processed stuff. Just things are way different. Even if there was, there's a little bit of instruction. We covered a little bit of it. But the thing is, we could talk about diet, which would include drink and food, and we can talk about exercise. And we could talk about that for days on end. But what I want us to think about, first of all, is I want to ask you a question about those things, diet and exercise, and just overall health. Where are you getting your information, right? When think about this parallel idea. Let's talk about the gospel, okay? Where are you going to get your information? Are you going to go get the yellow pages out, online, look up, try to find the church with the biggest crowd, and make sure that same pastor maybe has a PhD, and you were looking for a church with all these programs, and you think, okay, I've found my place, right? Same thing with the parallel, physically. How are you going to know that gospel place is telling you the truth? You might see a certificate here. You might see a lot of people flocking there. Go to this doctor. How do you know he knows what he's talking about? Every doctor is going to have a certificate. Are you going to flip a coin? Are you going to get educated enough to make a decision about what kind of doctor to pick? Right? So these are things. And the other thing, too, if you go to a doctor and they tell you something, are you going to take that home and study it? Or are you just going to swallow everything the doctor says to do? These are the things we need to start thinking about. Is it okay to question a doctor? I hope so. I've got a lot of negativity here to say about doctors, and I'm not going to say it. And you could probably tell from the historic, conversations that I've talked about doctors and their practices. But you need to do your own thinking, really, about everything, especially the gospel. You need to be involved, be a Berean, search the scriptures. And then everything else, whether it be politics, money, health, everything, you gotta ask around. You gotta have some go-to people that maybe know more than you that can assist you on, maybe like, hey, I need some electrical work, I need some plumbing work, I need a lawyer. After a while, after you get older, you start to find these people. You can go to them and ask questions so you don't get ripped off by every other person you encounter. Go ahead and those of you who want to get on Zoom, go ahead and do so. And those of you that just want to stay where you're at on Livestream, that's fine too. And maybe we can open up some questions here. And I was talking to Steve Brown. We kind of came up with this idea the other day when I was talking to him. And I listed a bunch of things that I didn't mention here. I can't even remember what they were. But I thought, this is worth talking about. And if you think anything I said maybe was valuable or just flat out wrong, I think the idea is having a balance in our minds about how we think about these things. I'm not telling you how to think about them. I'm just putting a mechanism in place saying these things do need to be thought about, and you have to develop a balance in your mind of how much time to invest in taking care of yourself, which includes what you drink and eat. It includes what doctor you go to. It includes, am I going to go big pharma or more natural, or a balance of both? What kind of doctor am I going to? Am I just going to get any and every shot people would suggest to get? Am I going to get no shots? Am I going to refuse, like some of those religious people, Christian Science, I think they refuse blood transfusions, and, people often die when they do that. And there's all kind of choices is what I'm getting at. And we need a liberty of conscience to be able to make decisions freely and not have to be forced into making decisions. There shouldn't be any quick decisions on important things. We got a couple on right now. I thought we would have more by now, but you guys want to bring anything up so far? Let me get my volume up here. Okay.
I think too, like even with diet, your mental health can affect that. So it's kind of like you got to balance that out. Do you ever get depressed and just want to sit and eat?
Yeah. Well, I never thought of it that way. Yeah.
Mental things going on, it might be best to address those before you try to start even thinking about eating healthier.
Right. And then here's the thing too. I wanted to bring this part up too, that in society, depending on like what year we're talking about, in the last few decades, there are so many myths that are propagated or continue to be propagated. For example, back in the 70s and 80s, there was this myth about fat, right? We got to cut out fat. So no eggs. They started talking bad about beef and pork, and bad about eggs. And then they talked about, hey, we got a cholesterol problem, we got a fat problem, and we need to, as far as exercise, we need to quit lifting weights. You need to start doing marathon, long jogs, right? Well, it's taken about 30 years at least, and they're finding out that they were wrong on all of that. Higher fat, less carbs, higher protein, less marathon running, and more like short, intense work is the proven way to go. And science is starting to show that slowly. And there's enough to say like it's the superior way by now. But there had to be a lot of people filling their bodies up with Crisco and margarine and all kind of like synthetic plastic stuff, and just packing your arteries with all these bad seed oils and stuff, and eggs get demonized and all that, and which all of a sudden, well, what happened? Well, we've got an obesity epidemic, right? And why is that? I just explained it. They wanted to cut the fat out, jack the carbs up, bring in the seed oils, all this stuff attributed to obesity. Now, before it was like everything was blamed on fat. Well, now they're finding out everything should be blamed on carbs. Cancer, sugar, we know sugar contributes to cancer, and obviously obesity. But it's weird how that those myths were propagated and there's still people that haven't got the memo. I still hear people talk about things like, people talk about beef, and it's like, hey, you're going to have a heart attack, or talk about eggs, or butter. You're going to have a heart attack. I watched something where some guy sued the FDA, represented the butter industry, and he won because the FDA lied about the cholesterol thing and the heart attacks and all that. Well, he won. And I don't know how many people know about that. Maybe 2 people, me and somebody else, that saw that. But this was a few years back. But that's the thing, you've got, everybody has an opinion, and it's just like the gospel, just like religion, where think about what we hold to in this group, and you bring it out into and mix it up in the mainstream. Who's going to hear our message? Are we able to talk about it? It's kind of the same way with this health stuff. We know the health stuff's not as important. It's not as urgent. But it could be, if we're talking about maybe a vaccine versus no vaccine, it might be a little bit more urgent. But it might not be if we're talking about some guy might eat a couple baked potatoes rather than, eat a steak. It's not as big of a deal. But where are people getting their information? And have people recognized myths? And you know how long it takes to stop a myth? Sometimes never when it comes to everybody, right? And it's very slow to start turning the tide of people having that default answer, right? Because when people think about heart attacks, they usually think about eggs and butter and steak. And I think now it's proven the opposite. This is the healthiest way to eat when it comes to heart health. I think I drifted off a little bit on your question, Janet.
No, you're fine. I was just saying sometimes people do have struggle with things in their life that causes mental things, whether it be stress, depression, whatever, and it tends to make you
eat different. Yeah.
Say in your daily life.
Yeah, I get you now. So it could be some binge eating, could be some. Sometimes people go through things and they won't eat, and believe it or not, that's better than eating the wrong thing. Which leads me to the idea of fasting, and I'm not talking about for any spiritual reason, but because if we do that, we're not supposed to talk about it anyway, according to Matthew 6. But if you start looking into this idea of fasting, it's pretty good for you. Even if it's intermittent fasting, even if it's hey, I'm going to cut out one of my 3 meals a day, this is very, very good for you. And it will cause you to lose weight, and you can save money. If somebody is overweight and they're lacking money, it's a win-win if they start fasting, because they'll save money and they'll lose weight, right? It takes a long time to starve to death, right? People can go a long time without food as long as they keep drinking good amounts of water with enough electrolytes and things like that. I mean, it'll help the body to heal, to give your digestion a break, and so on. I mean, I don't want to just start popping out different seminars on different topics, but...
Well, if you go to Rib City all the time, you'll lose the
Me and Charles went to Rib City. It's just right behind his house, and I had eaten there in times past, but I guess it was shrinkflation. And man, their serving size was crazy small. And Charles always jokes about it small portion
Good
restaurant.
Place to lose weight.
Yeah.
Just go there, eat a couple of meals a day. It's better than Jenny Craig.
But there's a bunch of different directions we could go in this conversation. But yeah, you're right, Janet. Really, as we said before, the mind is more important than the body, and they both affect each other. But really, if a person gets educated on how to take care of their body, and they have this in their mind, and what we would ask for would be discipline to follow through with and apply some of the things that we learn. We can learn all kinds of stuff, and I have, but when it comes to application, it's a different story. It takes discipline. very much, and that's the hard part. That's my opinion.
Sometimes the mind and the emotions can also affect the body, just like stress does.
No doubt, no doubt about it. If somebody, like anxiety, I've seen people in other frenzies about other kinds of things. They can't think straight. They think all crooked. They've got tunnel vision, and it'll affect their blood pressure. It'll affect whether or not they're acidic or alkaline. It'll affect their cortisol, that stress hormone. There'll be all kinds of things that would affect in a negative way. I mean, to counter those things, it takes a lot. Some supplementation, like some stress stuff, some B vitamins would counter that. Exercise would work that out. But usually when people are in a state like that, they just keep feeding it with more and more stress, and the problem gets worse and worse and worse. And it does affect a person's eating, anywhere from not eating at all or eating too much, and especially eating the wrong thing.
Plus, that stress can also have a big effect on your digestion, too.
That is true. Digestion problems,
Yeah.
big time.
Then you gotta end up getting heartburn and all that good stuff.
Oh yeah, yeah.
What's that called?
IBS.
No. Well, IBS, that's a whole different ballgame. There's certain foods with IBS you can't eat that are normally good for you.
Yeah, yeah.
So, but now there's some, what's it called? Acid reflux.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, but there's a acronym for it.
Okay.
I forget.
GERDs.
GERD. Yep.
Yep. So, the health thing is just one out of many things that could interrupt your life and slow things down, right? I mean, let's just think about health when it comes to, say, you're in an accident versus like you didn't bring it on with bad food or bad lifestyle. You're in an accident. It's not even your fault. Somebody else did it, So you're entering into a healthcare crisis where you have to get out of. So you're going to you've been thrown into this. All right, I got to recover from this. It's going to take a little bit of extra, time and patience and thought and maybe some study to like get out of this problem. If somebody's like, okay, now you got to go to therapy. Are you convinced that this is going to help you? Are you going to put all that you have into it so you can get back to normal? Maybe even beyond back to normal, get in better shape than you were before you even got hurt. I've seen people do it. So you've got those situations. Some things are out of our control, but sometimes the problems we cause ourselves by habitually, eating and drinking the wrong things to cause more and more problems. So we don't know how those things are going to end up sometimes. We don't even know how they're going to end up for us, much less somebody else that we're trying to, pray for and help and so on. When it comes to this health stuff, you could spend a lot of time investing in health stuff and looking into it. And you could spend a lot of money too. But I think, to have a proper biblical balance thing, I think you should, if you're going to spend money, you should research before you spend money. And you shouldn't really turn this into an idolatrous thing. If you've got a health crisis, you have to figure out, hey, what am I going to do for this cancer treatment? By all means, spend the time. But if you're just got this idea, I'm going to turn myself into Superman or Superwoman, and I'll see if I can extend my life by an extra 50 years, and you're just investing in for a hobby and looking in all this health stuff, and you start dumping a bunch of money in all these different therapies and stuff, you see how it kind of it's going in the wrong direction. I've seen people like that. They just and maybe they're gullible. Maybe the first thing they see is hey, I'm going to throw $100 at that. Let's try that. all you got to do sometimes is look on the internet and look at reviews or scams, and you find out this didn't work in the first place. There's no real evidence, no real literature that says that this is something that may work.
Sometimes you got to watch out for Dr. Google too.
Dr. Google,
yeah. You got to be careful of them also sometimes.
Yeah, and you got these people that are in the alternative health kind of club, and seem like a lot of time people are selling stuff, you know.
Oh yeah, they're always doing that. By the way, we have this product here that works really good for this. You know?
Mm-hmm. It's just, I mean, I always compare it to the gospel. I mean, you really have to do some homework. Of course, with the gospel, we're relying on the Spirit to reveal it to us, right? And when it comes to this health stuff, I mean, just pray about it like any other decision, really. Whether it's a decision to buy a different car, another car, or move to a place, you know, incorporate your prayers in your healthcare decisions, you know. But you got to look into some stuff. Just don't swallow anything.
Yeah, because
really anybody tells you.
Stuff like, you'll look, they're selling something, they say, oh, by the way, if you put your code in here redacted or something like that, you can get 25% off of our product. And the same thing with like the Jimmy Door or something.
Yeah,
like that,
yeah,
you know?
Yeah.
You put in DORE or something like that, you get a 15% discount or something.
Yeah. So things, I mean, and again, if somebody's selling something, it doesn't mean it's bad. I mean, I considered selling some supplements. I've looked into some different things to kind of make money online, but I mean, if people are buying supplements, they got to buy them somewhere. So they got to be convinced in their own mind: is this good quality stuff? Is it a good price? You know, things like that. So
one of these, or you get?
I got some of these others over here. Anybody got anything else? Maybe a different area that I haven't covered.
You were talking about, you know, the mind, you know, and how it affects the body, and I totally agree with that. Because again, like I said, stress, depression, you know, those kind of things. So in all due respect, I believe that there is, I mean, seriously, a mind-body connection.
Yeah.
Now, with that being said, what would you say in terms of, because I think you had mentioned a while back, if my memory serves me correctly, and I don't want to, you know, misquote or, you know, anything, but you had mentioned, you know, things in terms of like, you know, psychology. It's not something that we as believers should be involved in, or I mean, what is your take on that?
I do remember talking about something about that. Here's what I said. It wasn't too long ago. I said this. First of all, I don't know. I'm not an expert on that subject, but I do believe this, that psychotropic drugs, if that's what they're called, you know, for psychological problems, are way over prescribed. I think everybody would.
I wasn't talking about psychotropic drugs because I am dead set against that.
Yeah.
Because then you're altering a whole bunch of stuff. I'm just talking in terms of like, I'm a believer to where it's like, okay, the Lord ordains everything. So that being said, it's kind of like if you come across a situation, it's kind of like even in my personal life, there have been times to where it's kind of like, okay, Lord, what are you trying to show me? What do I need to know? You know, in terms of whether it be about that person, the situation, what can I learn from that? I don't know if I'm putting that correctly.
Are you talking about people getting counseling from psychologists and psychiatrists?
Things that have happened in our childhood and how they affect us, and how we can go ahead and unknowingly, those thoughts and patterns, you know, bring that onto our own children without ever realizing it until we get much older. you know, I don't know. What is your take on that as far as, you know?
Well, like I said, I didn't know what you were getting to there. You said you weren't talking about any type of prescription to make you think a different way about a problem. And then the only things left is psychiatrist or psychologist. And I think, what is the difference? Psychiatrist can prescribe drugs and a psychologist doesn't?
No, it's the psychiatrist prescribes. The psychologist is basically, you know, dealing with thoughts and stuff like that and how to change those thoughts or, you know, change behavior, you know, or see things a different way other than what it was that you were used to, and understanding maybe the whys behind it.
Right. You know, I think the first step, like, I mean, anybody in our family, I wouldn't want them to be going to anybody else. I mean, I would hope they would talk to me. Anybody in our church, they know they can talk to me. And the only reason somebody would talk to somebody else outside of their family or me in the church is maybe they want to keep it on the down low, or there could be several reasons. And some of the reasons could be wrong also, depending on what it is. Some people don't want to talk to believers because they're on the wrong end of a situation, and it's more convenient to talk to somebody of the world so they can have their cake and eat it too. That, of course, is a problem. And if there's no local church, you know, there's a disadvantage. But still, some people, you know, they will maybe call, you know, long distance and talk to people. There's all kind of options, but I'm not a real big believer in. I'm not going to be a legalist and say you can't do it, but I'm not real big on those things. I think we need to. I mean, as time goes on, people might say, "Well, I would never do that again," and that's fine. And I don't know every situation how things go, but you know, if you talk to somebody that has maturity and wisdom, no matter who it is, whether it's a lady talking to another lady or whatever, it doesn't even have to be a pastor, and it could just be a mature believer that, you know, has good answers from the scripture. That's better than going some other route. I know when some people start talking about this subject, some people get really, really offended in both directions. And, you know, I'm not telling anybody what to do. I'm just telling people what I do and, you know, pretty much what our family does.
Yeah, because even after you're converted, that doesn't necessarily mean you're going to have a big change in personality.
Right.
Yeah, I heard that Richard Warmack reminded me of that in one of his sermons about saying you can be converted, but it doesn't mean you're going to have a. He didn't say if you were a jerk before you were converted, you were going to continue to be a jerk. But, you know.
Yeah. Well, I heard another preacher the other day say, you know, after you're converted, he guessed that the bulk of your personality stays the same. Some things get worse and some things get better.
Right.
But he said he thinks the majority of most people pretty much stays the same in their personality.
Yeah, because you still have the flesh even after conversion.
Yeah. I mean, it's a big.
Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
I was just going to mention something before I lost my train of thought. I'm not going to criticize anybody whether they took the COVID shot or where they didn't. But when the COVID thing first came out, there was these doctors plus scientists that done this study. They was against the COVID vaccine.
Yeah.
But they done a study on, like, I don't know, 2,000 of them that had died. The one thing they lacked in all of them was vitamin D. And I can personally, I take vitamin D because I don't get out a lot with my son.
Mm-hmm.
But vitamin D does help with depression. If you can get out in the sun, go for it. If you can't,
yeah,
take vitamin D.
That's good advice. Yeah, vitamin D is actually, if you look at the technical stuff and hear people talk about it, it's actually a hormone and not a vitamin, even though they call it a vitamin. But, you know, the sun, of course, is a good source, and the sun is good for all kinds of things. get into your eyeball without sunglasses. It creates serotonin in your brain, and it helps the circadian rhythms to where you can get your sleep pattern adjusted right. And when you get sunlight in your eyes, it even goes into your body and strengthens your skin so you don't get skin cancer as easily. Plus the whole thing about sun and skin cancer, I mean, it's obvious. The idea is like, don't rush out the first day in summer and just burn yourself up. Get the gradual exposure. And once you get the gradual exposure, just continue that and keep absorbing that healthy vitamin D into your skin. And it's good for everything. It's good for your joints. It's good for your immune system. 2 years ago, they had a flu shot, and they said vitamin D supplementation was 68% more effective than the flu shot. Well, anybody knows anything about alternative health should have already known that that was the case. It's not a news flash. And now they're putting, from what I understand, they're going to start putting the nanotechnology on the flu shots anyway, so I wouldn't be messing with them.
If you take the vitamin D3, it's always good to take K2 with it.
Yeah.
Because it absorbs better.
D3K2. And, that'll cause calcium to absorb better and stay in your bones rather than go all over, like getting your plaque in your arteries or kidney stones or in your joints.
K2 helps with your blood clotting.
Yeah. Yeah, there's all kind of, some of us on here dabble in that stuff and trade information. I know Debbie's real big into it. I've been trying to pick up everything I read since I was like 12. That's when I first got interested in it. But even in this alternative health community, you got to be very suspicious, and you got to use your head. You just can't believe and swallow everything that comes across, because a lot of trends roll through here. A lot of disinformation comes through. Again, just like the gospel. Same thing. I feel like I didn't answer your question, Donna. Did I finish that?
No, you're fine.
I just said what I would do.
No.
Anybody can do what they want. Yeah.
And I have to honestly sit here and say, as far as this group is concerned, first of all, it's nothing like anything that I had been attached to. The women have always, in this group, my sisters have always made themselves available. I have Janet's number. I have Angelina's number. I have Michelle, so yeah. It's so sweet to be able to go ahead and even just a casual conversation.
Yeah. Yeah. And so, a lot of things we know in life that cause anxiety are corrected. We read in text, right, about in Matthew there where it says, hey, what are you doing worrying about all these things? When the sparrow falls, God takes care of the flower of the field are clothed, and not a hair of your head shall fall to the ground without God knowing. He's in charge of all that. He knows all the number of the hairs on your head. He's in absolute control. And all these things are brought up in the scripture. And the more we read that and understand it and take that and apply to our own lives and what's going around in our community or our country, these things start to gel and take grip and come alive to us, and we have an understanding. And then, we're running through trials and tribulations and different experiences through chastisement and persecution and things like that. And we start to lean on these promises of God concerning who He is as the only true and sovereign one. And, lean on His promises. And this is a humbling thing, right? We don't know we don't have a promise of tomorrow. Life's a vapor. All these things collectively, all things work together for good. And we start to see how these work, and it becomes a little more comfortable And then we go through another experience and we learn, right? And but this Christian life is not the prosperity gospel where everything is going to be like from rags to riches. As far as spiritually, we have the riches of Abraham, right? Our father Abraham believed the same promise we did, right? We are rich in Christ. And we always talk about, well, what's the worst case scenario? I said it a couple weeks ago. We'll die and be with him. That's worst case scenario. And then I kind of qualified that a little further. Well, we could have a painful death and then die and be with him. I get it. It could happen. But the point is, we're secure. We're sealed. We're his. And God knows all those that are his. His foundation stands sure. He knows those that are his. So, just getting back before the Zoom quits, this is just one of many things, this idea of taking care of your health. You could go into money, how to be a good steward of your money, how to take care of your money, how to have decent relationships, on and on and on. Everything, these different facets. The key is, what is the balance, the biblical balance of your mind and how to think about these things where you're not swinging in wrong directions, being a fatalist or turning something into idolatry. You can do that with money too, right? They're going to take our Social Security money away, and I shouldn't even invest because the stock market always crashes. And so you're going to be at the end of your life, and you're going to be, I don't know, underneath a bridge or something because you thought negatively about something that you could have put just a small amount of money in investment. And it's the same with everything. We have tendencies to have these swings from one extreme to the other, and they're not good. When we talk about a biblical balance of thinking and we forget about money and health and all this, and we just talk about the gospel, grace alone, right? We don't add to it, right? But then we find out we're supposed to be involved in living the Christian life. So what's that look like? So we talk about doing these things on the gospel foundation, and Christ, God is the one who works in us, both the will and do of his good pleasure. We're encouraged to do these things. The scripture says we will do these things, and we see that it's God doing the work. And we're going to be either called a legalist by the antinomians, or we're going to be called an antinomian by the legalists. But we just look and see how this works. So a biblical balance when we look at salvation is 100% God and 0% us. When we look at other things, the percentage of balance might be different. I'm not even talking about salvation. I'm talking about how we do things with our health, with our money, with our relationships, and so on. We have to think biblically in the context of what it says in the scripture about everything that we do. We do all for the glory of God. We know that. Whether we eat, we drink, and so on, we do it all to the glory of God. Now, if you ask somebody, okay, so what's that look like when it comes to how you take care of your body? What's that look like to do that to the glory of God? You might get 10 different answers from 10 different, I'm talking about real believers. But this is just to get us to start thinking about it. I'm not going to do a 10-part series on this. I sure am not. People can invest as much time as they think wisely they need to.
And we could put it in a Q&A.
Okay. I know some people that are pretty radical in this movement. And when it comes to some say, like, if I get cancer, I'm not doing chemo or radiation. Which means they got to figure out what to do, something different. And I know several people with that mindset. And I know a guy right now that's going through some alternative treatments. And we'll see how it goes.
You got 2 other guys sitting right here who aren't going through it either.
Yeah, I'm not. Sure not going to do that poison. All right, let me look at these questions here. Hey, let me say this. I see Cindy here. Before I go back up, I see Cindy said this is a great topic. Really needed some of what you spoke on, and it had me pretty down today. Thank you for the encouragement in the Lord, Scott. Well, let me just mention something positive about, and Charles can tell you, he's seen, Joe. He's been part of our church for, he's been coming a little over a year. And yeah, I knew right away he had some health problems, and he talked about some of them. But Charles, he's noticed it. He's been here with us, and we've seen Joe. Me and Charles both kind of told him about some health things, sent him some videos and so on. And he started watching what he was eating. He had had a heart attack in the past. He had diabetes. He had high blood pressure. Anyway, he started changing his diet. He started moving around more. And from what I understand, he's gotten off 5 prescriptions this year.
Mm-hmm.
And I can't remember now how much weight he's lost, but I was pretty excited about it. I mean, even if it was somebody I didn't even know that well, even if it's an unbeliever, I get excited about when people succeed on some of that stuff. Because some of the medications had side effects. These medications cost money. I don't know any that are really good for you. But he was able to get off of 5. So that was encouraging. And I know some of you guys have stories about, getting off of certain things. Some talk here about binge eating. And, I have some bad habits. Like, for example, I learned some good things from my dad, like don't waste money. So if there's food left over, I don't want food wasted. So I'm the cleanup guy, and I'm eating too much food that's left over, right? That's a bad habit. Eating the good food that's left over is one thing, but eating too much of the good food that's left over is yet another thing. Eating that food that's left over too late is another thing too, right? It's all boils down to a bunch of choices we make. We need to think, and sometimes I let some things slide. Like, I'll just go ahead and eat this. Becky brought home some Popeye chicken, which it's cooked in beef talon. It's not cooked in bad oils. And she said, "You want a piece of chicken?" It was a big, giant piece of chicken breast, and it's like, I ate not too long ago, but yeah, give me the chicken. And I ate it, and I ate it too late. And at night I started, getting that, I felt like it was up in my neck, right? And I shouldn't do that. You ever eat too late, Charles?
Yeah.
Yeah, I hate it tastes good, but I hate doing it.
Usually, what I eat later is usually a small snack or something.
Yeah. Angelina says, all my life I've been health aware. It pays off now that I'm older. Probably decades older. Yeah. So, habits is all it's about. So, Michelle, that methylene blue, I just got some of that recently, and I'm going to start taking it. You say it helped you. I'm interested in seeing what it does for me. Sleep matters too, tremendously. I didn't get down far enough in my notes, but that was there. Sleep. Yeah. And when your mind is not right, when there's anxiety, it affects your sleep. No doubt about it. Sleep's a big one. Michelle, I just got that Ron told me about that kind of magnesium glycinate. I just got some of that too. I haven't even get. My wife's taken some. I haven't.
There's also one that's good for blood pressure. It's called magnesium taurate. It's supposed to be good.
What's
for
the last?
blood pressure.
Magnesium.
Taurate, something like that.
Okay.
That's supposed to be good for blood pressure. Maybe glycinate is too. I don't know. But that glycinate, if it's glycinate, I think it means it's chelated too.
Okay. Yeah, there's some things that are like biggies, like, you know, stress, and we can block some of that stress. I mean, you don't have to let things stress you. If there's people you need to cut off that are causing you stress and affecting your health, cut them off. I mean, it's sort of like terrorism otherwise, isn't it? Especially Facebook. I mean, all you gotta do is block people. It's pretty easy, if that's the problem. When it comes to mental health, kidney stones. Yeah, Michelle. I use this stuff called Stone Crusher, I think it was. It's in like a little squeezed tincture. Cleared them up. It's $12.
You get that over the counter?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. It's either Stone Crusher or Stone Breaker. I think there's two different brands. It's real bitter. I'll show you what I got in there.
Isn't lysine supposed to help with that?
Could be. Charles just brought up lysine. So I used lysine to fix shingles. I had a shingles outbreak.
Okay, that's right.
Once in my life, and some lady in church identified that that's what it was. And you know, I looked at pictures, and it was starting to hurt. It was on one side. Did some research real quick. L-lysine, it's an amino acid. I took 1,000 milligrams 3 times a day. After 2.5 days, gone. And, like, the pills were like less than $10. And you know, L-lysine is good for viral stuff. You know, like cold sores, fever blisters, any type of virus at all. It's good to tame down different Epstein-Barr, you know, and different things like that. So, and I didn't have to go get shingle shots or however much the shingles medication. I'm sure it cost a fortune. It was like $8 for a bottle of L-lysine.
Another thing supposed to help is nitric oxide.
Nitric oxide is good for to dilate your blood vessels, and I've used it to lower my blood pressure. Yeah, Popeyes is on the list. If you look on the internet, it'll give you a list of all the restaurants that use beef tallow. It's starting to be a thing now because of RFK. You know, he's talking about the bad oils and stuff, and more restaurants are switching over if they want to stay in business. Justin Grasmick is down 30 pounds in 3 months. Great. Changed his diet and exercise. I have more energy and much less susceptible to colds and flus. Just turned 56. You're an old dude, Justin. Not really. 56. Seemed like I was 56 just last week.
What's it like being so young?
Yeah, I did. Yeah. I did the keto diet back in 2020, and I lost 45 pounds in about 6 months, and felt tremendous. And it took like 3.5 years to slowly, 4 years to slowly get it back. So I need to get that back off. Donna uses tallow on her face. I guess there's all kind of uses for it. I put some castor oil on my elbows today and my shoulder. I'm seeing how that's gonna, see if that helps. I got a bad shoulder. It's getting worse. So I thought I would try that. Lauren asks you, Charles, which magnesium did Charles mention for blood pressure?
Taurate. Taurate. Magnesium taurate.
Okay.
Yeah, it's not easy to find in stores. I had to
You probably
order
find,
it.
probably get it online.
Yeah.
So that L-lysine, yeah, she mentions here that it's antiviral and took it during COVID season. Some people get, again, shingles. Some people are even embarrassed by that. Who cares? It's somehow tied to something like the chicken pox, the same type situation. But some people, some fever blisters and cold sores are related to some form of a herpes virus. And then there's some more advanced herpes viruses that are like sexually transmitted, and L-lysine has even replaced some of that, real expensive in medicine that's bad for you and has side effects. So there's all kind of stuff out there. Yeah, I remember doing COVID, I had a list of about a half dozen things that I was taking to avoid COVID. I tell you what, now, anybody that got the shot, I should probably make this a separate post. Debbie could probably do it, about the protocol that Dr. McCullough, what's the other Dr. Charles? Is McCullough, and who else starts with an M? Malone. These two guys promote this three ingredients, and they have the exact. This is approved. There's been papers written on it, peer reviewed. It's approved by one of the big organizations. Not that matters, but I trust these guys. And it's 3 ingredients, and it's all 3 natural. I don't remember the dosages, but it is curcumin, which is the extract of turmeric, the more concentrated of turmeric. Bromelain. It's an enzyme. Comes from pineapple.
Natcanase?
Yeah, I was going to ask you to help me pronounce it.
I don't know.
It's pretty close.
It's
yeah.
probably not
Natcanase.
Natcanase or whatever.
But anyway, it's all over Malone and McCullough's material. They tell the doses and all that. Anyway, this is to detox from the spike protein. Anybody got the shot?
There's a guy, Dr. Moran, who was exposing the vaccine, and also Dr. Sunil Dehand.
Yeah.
And Vinny Prasad.
Okay.
He was another guy.
So there's information. There's plenty out there on detox, and that's a pretty important thing. If you got the shot, you should be doing something to detox from that. Get that stuff out of you. All right, that's all I got right now.
So some of the stuff with the information, with COVID and stuff like that, you'll get better information on Rumble than you will YouTube, because YouTube likes to demonetize that a lot.
Yeah, good point. And also BitChute. They got some good stuff.
Brave.
Yeah. All right, that's all we got for now. Appreciate you guys listening. Let me end on this one thing. The gospel is the focus, and our mind is more important than our body. So if we have the gospel, it should affect our minds. We should ask for wisdom and try to take care of our bodies the best we can. Not being a fatalist and blowing it off, not being turn it into idolatry and spend too much money and be vain about it and be legalistic about it, but have a biblical balance on this whole thing. I hope that makes sense. It's important. So hopefully you guys can think through it, and not everybody's going to come up with the same way of thinking on all of it, and it doesn't matter. This is not like it's a salvation issue. It's an important issue, but it's not a salvation issue. Hopefully it stirred you to thinking some. And there's those people that don't know much about some of this alternative stuff. There's a lot of people on here that do. So
you get some also information from a guy that Scott and I like, or Dr. Eric Berg.
Dr. Berg, Berg. He's got a whiteboard. He teaches when he talks. Who else? Dr. Pompa. I like him.
Yeah.
There's another guy too, like Dr. Good something. He gives away a free book.
Dr. Gundry.
Well, there's Gundry. There's another guy. It's called Dr. Goodall or Goodwill, or I can't remember. But anyway, there's a lot of decent dudes out there that won't rip you off. They do have to make some money. They are selling stuff, but some guys, I mean, they'll give a lot of stuff away, and they're passionate about what they teach. Not saying any of these guys believe the gospel. I have no idea what they hold to, spiritually. But I sure don't trust some of these doctors that are just miles away from me. I'd rather travel hundreds of miles to go to some of these other guys that I'm talking about rather than some of these clowns around here. All right. Thanks for listening.